Hi everyone, yasas que kalosir to another episode of Dimitra's Dishes. Today I have a delicious fall recipe for you. It's a dessert, it's a cookie, which is my favorite type of dessert because it goes well with coffee and tea. I'm making a special twist on classic Greek Kourabiedes. They're not going to have any nuts, which is part of the twist, but they're also going to be filled with spiced grated apples. You can add walnuts and raisins to yours if you want to the filling. Once they're ready, the house is just going to smell incredible and you're going to want to make some coffee and call some friends over. Let me show you how I make them. Okay, so let's begin by making the dough. The cookie dough is very simple to make. You want to make sure that you have 1 pound of unsalted butter, softened and out at room temperature. If you forgot to take it out in the morning, then you can pop it in the microwave for a few seconds. Just be careful so that way it doesn't melt. So 1 pound of butter is going to go into the bowl and the mixer is fitted with the paddle attachment. Next, I'll add 2 tablespoons of granulated sugar, 1 cup of confectioner sugar or powdered sugar, and 2 teaspoons of pure vanilla extract. This is going to start off on a slow speed so that way everything doesn't fly out and end up on your clothes. And then we're going to increase the speed to a medium high so that way the butter and the sugar fluffs up and gets basically nice and fluffy. That's going to take about 3 or 4 minutes. It might take a little bit longer. It depends on your mixer. While that's happening, let's get the dry ingredients ready. So in a big bowl, go ahead and add 4 cups or 560 grams of all-purpose flour. You can go all the way up to 600 grams because this is going to be a very wet dough and later on we might have to add a little bit more flour. A 1/4 teaspoon of salt and 1 teaspoon of baking powder. And then you can add the zest of an orange. I don't have oranges on hand, so I'll do these clementines. You need about a teaspoon of it. So zest that into the flour mixture and then whisk it all together just to fluff everything up and to incorporate all of the ingredients together. And that's it, set that aside. Once the butter is ready, we're going to add the eggs. So you want the eggs to also be at room temperature. We're only using the egg yolks and we need 4 egg yolks for this recipe. You can use the whites for an omelet or meringues or something like that, so you could save them and refrigerate them. Go ahead and add the eggs. Once the eggs have been incorporated, I'm going to reduce the speed to a low and then I'm going to add the flour in a little bit at a time, maybe in like 2 or 3 batches. Once all of the flour is incorporated, go in with a spatula and then mix everything all together just to get anything that's stuck to the bottom and the sides of the bowl incorporated and mixed in really well and all together. And if the dough is looking a little bit too sticky and too wet, you can add 1/2 cup of flour at this point and just mix it one more time on low speed until it's all incorporated. Set it aside so that way it can rest. Once the dough rests, it's going to be easier to handle. So just set that aside and then we'll make the filling right now. So for the filling, we're going to need 3 small apples. These are gala apples. Just remove the skin, peel the skin off, and then I just take my box grater. I don't have to core these or anything like that. They're actually easier to grate whole, so that way you don't have small pieces and then you grate your fingers instead. So grate them all around. Once you get to the core, you could just discard that. And then these leave a lot of liquid, so there's a lot of juice in these. So carefully squeeze the juice out, as much of the juice that you can get out of there, and transfer the grated apples into another bowl. Of course, you could drink the juice if your hands are clean. My hands are so clean because I wash them 100 times a day. So you can set that juice aside and just use it for another recipe, maybe put it in your oatmeal, so many things, just don't waste it. And then in the grated apples, we're going to add 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, a 1/4 cup of brown sugar, this is a light brown sugar, and a 1/4 teaspoon of ground cloves. I have some chopped up walnuts here. We're going to add 1/2 cup of ground walnuts to this. You can add pecans if you like, or you can leave them out. And then we're going to mix this all together until everything is coated and incorporated. And finally, I'm adding some raisins. So you can add as many raisins as you like. I know some people don't like the raisins, and if you don't like them, you could leave them out. I'll put the substitutions on the blog in the recipe card, so I'll give you some options. So that's it for the filling. It's ready. Now we're just going to make the cookies. So I have a kitchen scale here, so that way I divide the cookies evenly. Just measure 50 grams of dough per cookie, and once you have all the dough rolled out, we're just going to take 1 ball of dough at a time and flatten it out. You can do this in your hand. That's actually the best place to do it, in your hand. You can start flattening it out on your work surface, on your counter or your cutting board, whatever you're using, but eventually you want to end up in your hand just so that way it holds together. And then take a tablespoon of the filling and place it in the center of the dough. Then we're going to take all of the edges and pinch them together and just carefully roll it again back into a ball. Once you have all of the dough filled and shaped, now it's time to just decorate the top of the cookie. And you could do this, I use a fork for this. It's just very simple. You could poke some holes on top just to get a little bit of a prickly design on top, or you can press the tines of the fork in and just crisscross them or make whatever design that you like. Space them out on baking trays. Make sure the baking trays are lined with parchment paper, and then the oven should be preheated to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. These are going to bake on the center rack for 25 to 30 minutes or until they're golden all around. Once they come out of the oven, they're going to smell amazing. All that's left is to dust this with a generous amount of powdered sugar, and then once they cool down, they're ready to serve. And there you have it. The Kourabiedes are ready. I really hope you give these a try because they're just absolutely delicious. Let's do the taste test. They just crumble and fall apart when you go to cut them with your hands, so just imagine what they're going to do in your mouth. These are so good. The apples are just lightly sweetened. That cinnamon and clove that's in there gives it a little bit of baklava flavor. And I love the sweetness of the raisins and the little hint of earthiness from the walnuts. You can swap out the raisins and just leave them out altogether. I know some people don't like raisins at all, especially in their cookies. But if you do, you're going to love these. You can swap them out for dates or cranberries or just leave them out altogether. And instead of the walnuts, you can do pecans. It's totally up to you. This is so good. You're going to want to make these for the fall. You could even add these to cookie boxes later on for Christmas or give these as housewarming gifts. I hope you guys give this recipe a try. The exact measurements are on the website. You can head on over there to print this out so that way you can make them with all the step-by-step instructions and all of the tips on there. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. I'll see you all next time. Gracias.